Just on the end of my halter, and I was happy with how she was operating on her groundwork. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bridle her. I'm going to get organized. This is my loop rein on my Makati. I use a Makati a lot because they're just so darn handy. But I also use split reins. Any of you guys that have watched any of my videos, you know you've seen me use split reins with my snaffle bits. So, and I've even got some snaffle bit rigs that don't have a lead on them, so they're a loop rein but without the lead. But more often than not, when I'm riding in a snaffle bit, I'm going to use a Makati setup here with slobber straps. So, okay, so I've got her here. She's in her halter. I just take my lead and I run it over her neck so I can keep it close to me. Now, if she was wanting to leave like that, I could just grab my lead and hold on to her. Take my halter off. And I'm just going to throw it out of the way here, just so it's out of the way. Okay, so when I put my snaffle bit on, what I do is I keep that loop rein with the brow band. So I'm going to reach underneath here. I'm going to put her nose through the loop of the bridle right like that. And I keep that rein with the brow band. I don't put it over her neck until I get her bridled. I open her mouth. Now that her mouth's open, I just lift up over here with my right hand. I tuck her offside ear in first, then her close ear, her left ear in second. Get her comfortable. And as you can see, that the loop rein is still with my brow band. And the reason for that is something was to happen and she was to spook and blow away. And I had that loop rein already over her neck. That headstall is going to drag. Even if I try to pull it off her, that headstall is going to drag down between her legs. And she's going to step in her headstall. And she could trip and hurt herself, or she could hurt. More often than not, what's going to happen is she's going to step on my headstall and wreck my headstall, break it. So I keep the loop rein. I don't throw it over her neck until I've got the bridle on it. Now I had a gentleman message me. No, you know what? He didn't message me. He commented on a video that I did about the snaffle bit. And his suggestion was, his remark was that all bits are an object of inflicting pain on your horse. And that's why would you use one? Why wouldn't you just ride him in a halter? Or why wouldn't you just maybe ride him in a hackamore? And I got back to, actually what I did is in my newsletter, I addressed it in my newsletter. That's where I commented on it. And what I was talking about is, it's not so much the bit, it's the hands the bit are in, and how you use the bit. So on these younger ones, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have that bit maybe just a little bit tighter than normal. So I might just have it just to the top of their mouth and then just a little bit more so she can't get her tongue over it. As you can see, she's working her tongue quite a bit. I want her to be relaxed about the bridle, the bit in her mouth. And now before I ever bridled her, when I was just riding her in a halter, what I would do is maybe when I would turn her loose in here when we're done like that, or even in her corral, her pen, I'd put a snaffle bit with just a string over top of it to where it would fall off if she got in a bind. And I just hold on to this here for me, Haley. I'm just going to step out of frame here for a second. It would fall off if she got in a bind. So she couldn't really, there's some great film work going on there. Thanks, Haley. She couldn't really get in trouble with it. And I let her pack that bit. So this is what that would look like. So I'm still riding her in a halter, and I would just hang this on her and maybe turn her out in it. And she could drink with it, and she could graze with it. I'm not kicking her out in the pasture, or I don't have her where I can check up on her. She's in her pen. And I'd let her wear it to where she's totally comfortable with it, okay? So the way a snaffle is designed, that if you're real harsh on it, if you're to pull real hard like that, it folds, and that can create pain. And that's not what you want to do. You want to use it as a signal advice to where if I take and I lift up on my rein and I draw on it and I'm using one rein like that, you see how it opens and gets flat if I'm using one rein? That's not squeezing on her at all, okay? If I was to pull firmly with both hands, it would fold. By the time I'm going to get my horse to where they're operating to where I'm using two hands together like that, they're totally understanding what I'm asking for. But to start with on these youngsters, after I've been riding them in a halter, maybe a hackamore for a while, I'm just using one rein at a time. So if I take a hold, this being the horse's mouth here, and I take a hold of that one rein, it doesn't fold on itself. It stays straight, it's soft, it's quiet. So the most important thing about the bit you're using, and this is just a snaffle, and people use a snaffle because they believe it's the mildest bit there is, and it can be the mildest bit out there, but in the wrong hands, it can also be pretty darn rough on a horse's mouth, because like I say, it can fold on itself right here. So the most important thing about the bit you're using on your horse is your hands. There's an expression, your hands should be slow to close and should be quick to open. And what that means is when I'm asking my horse to do something, me closing my hand on my rein before I'm asking him to do something like that is giving them warning that a pull is going to come. Okay? So I'm preparing them for the transition that I'm asking for. As soon as I get that transition, my hands are quick to open. There's my release. So your hands should be slow to close, quick to open. She's working that bit pretty good, but as you can see just by her demeanor there, she's not being bothered by it. Now if I lift up on that rein right here, she can come to me. As soon as she comes to me, I give her a release. She's far enough down the road to where she's already understanding of a soft feel when I get on her too. To where the soft feel would be, I just apply a little bit of pressure on both reins, and as soon as she gives to me, I release. So see, as I apply it right here, there, I release. I apply a little pressure, I release, okay? Now if I was to hang in there and not release right away, she'd be saying, oh, it's a backup that you want. So getting back to that gentleman commenting on about horses, or the bits using on horses are an instrument to apply pain to your horse. I'm not saying that they don't, I'm saying it's up to the individual. It's like fire. Fire can be a really good thing, and in the wrong hands it can be a really bad thing. So bits in a horse's mouth can be a really good thing, or it can be a really bad thing, depending on the user. But if you use your head and your hands are slow to close and quick to open, they're not an instrument of pain. It wouldn't matter what I would be putting on a horse. And we go through different horses and different bits, and you'll see it's the same thing. Not only that, too, you would be defeating your purpose if when you were to be picking up on your reins and that horse thought you were going to inflict pain on him right away, because your horse would tell on you right now, and instead of their mind being on what you want them to do, their mind would be on looking after themselves, protecting themselves. So it would be very much counterproductive if you were hurting your horse with the bit all the time. So I just thought I'd just take a little bit of time to address that. I hope that helped out.